Okay, 435, we'll start with the cylinder and then use the symmetry to create the notches and the through hole. So let's go into the double check here into the metric. We'll start with the right plane. And we have a diameter of 40. And an extrusion, we'll stay with the mid plane because of the geometry of 80. We'll be able to use that to our advantage a little bit, keeping the origin at the center of the part. Alright, so front plane, open up the sketch. Let's see, these are all, it says 15 millimeters deep in 4 places. 10 millimeter deep on the center. So alright, vertical infinite length. Since I didn't put it in first, I get to catch up to it. Alright, so make sure to select the center line in there so that we can get it to symmetry. Alright, so 10 by 10, no, that was the inside, 15 millimeters by 10 millimeters. Alright, so alright, so the lines are in position, the endpoints didn't quite make it to symmetric, and all of those, so if I go left to right, just my geometry, control select the horizontal center line, mirror entities. Go back up, right click, select midpoint, control select the silhouette edge. Go to the midpoint, this is 10 millimeters deep and 20 millimeters wide. Alright, so let's just go ahead and select the chain and mirror across those edges. Extrude cut because we're in the center of the part through all both. And double check that we made the correct cuts. Geometry in the center, we could go to the top, and our circle is at the center. Diameter of 10 millimeters. And feature cut through all. Okay, 36 in inches, diameter cut out. So this lends itself to either the shared sketches or to the layout. I'm probably going to lean towards the shared sketches. I used to be a lot heavier on the layout for some of the more complex geometry, but the shared sketches have proven themselves to be pretty stable and reliable. All right, 1.13 and on both sides, so I think I can take advantage of the symmetry across the front plane. Diameter here is 1.38. And midplane 2.75. The one concern that jumps up on the 1.13 number, well, let's see what happens when I forget to put in my layout sketch, or sorry, my contour and region. So as soon as I go over from being just a regular closed entity to having more geometry, this is going to flash an error. Alright, so those become equal. And we have 0.25 off of center line, so 0.5 overall. And when I accept, you have an error. basically because we did not select contours and regions. Alright, so the contour is this. So we end up with the same net result, but I have to come up with a method of dealing with that geometry. So we'll go into the sketch and going to Extrude Cut. And now the contour and region is the outside and the box. Clear those out so I can see them a little better. Okay, so there's the contour, there's the region. Reverse the direction, up to next or through all. All right, so that's going to notch it out. And then in the top plane, shows that coming up flush, so I'd like to be in the center. From the center line it came back, so we'll pull to that edge. And if I was to make this equal, and then start to put, got out of the sketch, start to put dimensions, I would expect to see 1.125 and 1.125 based on that rounding error. So the stack up of tolerances, once we cut this, I really want to be able to put a 1/2 inch end mill through there manufacturing this part. So through all both. So I don't want the stack up of tolerances, and that missed by just a little bit. Alright, so my number, we extruded. Oh yeah, I didn't take into account the 0.25, so this is where we can use direction 2, keep it in a blind end condition, 0.25. Go ahead and accept so that it creates the rest of the geometry. My other option would have been to go back into this sketch and stretch this out. Alright, and I could have left it as contour and region as long as it takes enough. And then this would go to construction geometry. Alright, so under the what if scenarios, the nice thing here is that, well, let's go left to right, so it just grabs those 4 items, is I can switch back and forth depending on what I need for the geometry. So a couple ways to approach that, that notch. And save. Okay, 37, the other fun one, still with the angle based on manufacturing. This is going to be an interesting part anyway, based on the notch outs, either being able to broach or wire EDM those cutouts. So let's go with the double check. We're in metric. And this shows as 80 across the corners. So that's important because now instead of an inscribed circle, we're going to be looking at a circumscribed circle to the outside. All right, so going into the top plane, pick up our hex, bring it out kind of vertical. And just as I was saying that, I forgot to, well, let's see if we can escape. All right, so double check. I don't think there's a way to switch it on the fly, so. Alright, so circle to the outside. And one of those needs to be vertical to give it orientation. And then we had 80 to the point, so just about as easy to grab the construction circle. And based on our geometry, our through diameter was 50. Okay, and then if we stay with the center rectangle to the outside, then those can be equal. So I just made a whole lot of geometry in here, which is going to make it a little more interesting to cut. And then this also needs some dimensions, so 12 millimeters. But because of the equal relations, they should both follow the dimensions as they're added. All right, so features, extrude 35 millimeters. And the contour, let's go with the hex first. We'll stay with the shared sketch and then go to Extrude Cut. I can switch to the circle. And we'll reverse the direction, give it an up to next or through all. Share the sketch one more time, Extrude Cut. Pick the contours for the squares. Change the direction up to next or through all. And get our shape. Go into the front plane. And do we have an angle? No, we have a distance. So from the corner and up 15 millimeters. All right, so even though this this front edge is kind of angled and I picked along that edge, it's still projected in as a linear object into the to the sketch. Okay, check the direction, make sure we're through all both, and there's my shape. Okay, 38, cylinder notch. This one has one of those from an intersection locations, so let's go ahead with the cylinder, and then we'll use the whole wizard for the whole geometry. And we are in metric. So top plane, open up the sketch, go to the origin with the circle. Diameter was 58, and we're just going to extrude that out to a height of 60. All right, so the front plane, pick up our angle, and let's see, they're showing 9, 12 off of center line. All right, so we do have to be a little careful picking the points because they kind of float around in, I guess, unexpected ways would be a good way to put it. 30 degrees on the angle, extrude cut. Direction of the cut's okay, through all both, and we'll get our angle in there. Alright, so issue here is we're 16 millimeters back from that face, but I need a direction of the cut. So did I produce anything that will give me that? Probably not. So let's go back into the sketch, and I'll pick up a center line, because I believe that will be good enough to pick up that geometry. Alright, so sketch, and we'll look for the center of the arc. Well, that one didn't quite take. Oops, wrong one. Popped up windows. Alright, so concentric. And we're going to go with the corner rectangle. I could go tangency and try to pick up the midpoint, but probably about as easy as grabbing that end geometry. And we're 16 by 16. So my design intent, I can make those equal. Alright, so that gives me the geometry based on the face, but certainly not the way that I would want to dimension it in the drawing. We're going to make this the direction of the cut so that it is a vertical cut. Extrude cut through all. And the direction of the cut, make sure I'm looking at this correctly, is along that center line. All right, finds the rest of the geometry. That looks pretty good. We can go back and hide sketch 2. All right, and then our last piece of geometry, I'll use the S key to get to the whole wizard. We are doing a 7 by 20 millimeter deep. So we'll back off just a little bit. And blind in condition, 20 millimeters to the shoulder. No countersinks. Go vertical. Oh, sorry, horizontal. and from the position 9 millimeters back from the edge, which I would just as soon have off of the center line. I guess my order of operations in making this part, 58 millimeters, a little over 2 inches, would be to get this to be a cylinder. Go ahead and drill the hole. Probably would go ahead and run the slot while it was the full diameter, and then set it up at the angle and clean this material off. Okay, what do we have for 39? All right, pin with a notch and a hole in it. And this is in metric. Front plane sketch. This is going to be simple enough geometry that 56 on the diameter. Extrude. I want it to go the other way. And 67 on the depth. Open up the sketch. We'll go vertical. Should be able to just do the extrude cut to a blind in condition, 32. And double check that, even with the symmetry, if we want to make it look well, maybe not quite like the picture, but at least in the same reference, it's not going to be that big of a deal. So go ahead and make the cut. Open up the sketch, 14 millimeters on center, 15 millimeters back. And horizontal. Okay, stay with the through all. And even with that geometry, 67 on a 56 diameter, that still looks a little out of perspective. But we go with the dimensions over what the picture looks like, unless we have to give it a good guess. All right, 439. We've done 440 quite a bit, pretty much coming up on the angle. We'd like to have that as the front plane. So 15 millimeters off. So let's go with the metric. Front plane sketch. Go ahead and pull some of that out. Pick up our center point, drop down, up and over. Make that section horizontal. Go ahead and give it the radius of 47. Alright, so it needs a dimension here, so having the two lines doesn't hurt. 15. Gives us a little bit of shift, extrude. And we'll go with the 70 millimeters. Alright, so again, if I wanted it to look like the picture, I'd have to put it in the right plane. Alright, so front plane, nope, right plane sketch. And we're pretty much going to have to rotate over. Make sure that if it's on center line that we need it to be there. 15 millimeters from the back. Okay, 15. And 20 on the down. And we'll go back to isometric, extrude cut. Make sure it goes through all, is going the correct direction, and gives us the desired shape. And go ahead and save that. Alright, what's up next? Alright, so 41 and 42 are new. Looking at the steps, we're in inches, 5/8, 3/8, 1/4 inch. Probably will do this L shape and then make the notch through. If I mid-plane it across the top plane, then I can go back and mid-plane the other, I want to say rib geometry, but I'm not ready to use the rib feature on that one just yet. May try it eventually. Alright, so top plane, open the sketch. Let's see, let's go ahead with the origin in the corner, and because of the wall thicknesses, I really don't want to go to offset, so we'll just sketch in the geometry. And we have 0.38, and we said 0.88, an overall length of 1.75 and 2.25. Alright, we'll go ahead and let's see, we're going to have 1.5 inch, 1/4 inch on each side, so features, extrude, mid-plane, 2 inches. Open up the sketch, put our rectangle in place, select the midpoint, select the edge, go midpoint, 1/4 inch off of the face, and 0.38 on the depth. Features, extrude cut, through wall. Top plane, then we'll get that rectangle, and it looks like it comes all the way to the edge, so we'll go, yep, didn't get coincident, make sure I'm getting the vertice. Nope, let's just go coincident to the edge. Alright, so standard issue that I have with the manufacturer. One of these needs to be radius corner so that I can get an end mill or get my geometry in there. Alright, so features, extrude, 0.25. Make sure that it's mid-plane so that it stays centered. Alright, so that gives me the geometry. Inch, 875 inch deep. That would be a likely candidate. These at 1 3/8 and 1 3/8 is a little bit on the deep side. So if I have this set up in the mill and I'm removing material, having a 1/4 inch of radius in there would go a long ways towards the manufacturer. All right, so 4-41. Let's take a look at 42. All right, so square, cut through, notch. All the upper geometry kind of lends itself to contour and region. We're going to have some stack up of heights, so the 1.25 and the 0.38, but that'll give us a chance to use some of the from. So we're staying with the part inch. Top plane sketch. Let's just go with the midpoint on the back, and 1.5 on the step, and 2.5 on the length. All right. So for the mirror, I'll just do a short center line. Okay, let's go ahead and connect the dots. Get the edges in there. All right, so we had 0.38. And the back comes up 1 inch. So we'll go ahead and mirror those over. We can stay with the center rectangle. Pick up our geometry and 0.75 by 0.75. Now I need to check that because I made a little bit of an assumption that it was at the intersection, which now that I look at it, it's probably not. Oops, let's see, which way did I go there? Okay, so that would be 375. The drawing shows 0.25. So I've got to get back to that coincident. And these are fun because they come up with a couple of extras for the origin. And if that point won't move off, then we'll move it. Okay, so 0.25. So there's the other point. Okay, so that was the intersection back 2. That picks up the geometry. That was the mirror point. So we had a little bit more geometry there than I was expecting. All right, so features, extrude boss. Selected contour will be the entire region. Goes up 1.125. No, 1.25. I'm going to share the sketch, and this is going to be an extrude cut. The from goes to surface or plane, so pick up the entire sketch. The depth to the back is 0.25, which means we're probably changing the direction to be downward. And then the region, didn't get a preview on that, so okay, and I'm not really worried about the step here, so we pick that up. And then the next item will be to extrude boss base. All right, so there's my face. We'll go to surface or plane again, and its height is 0.38. So I can manipulate those numbers based on the froms and the twos and the contours that I'm picking. And because of the merge, I shouldn't see any split line going through that geometry. So open up sketch. Let's go back to the corner rectangle. We can just go select and the origin, pick up the midpoint. Oops. Got a little into the filter when I right click, so it came up with all of the available 0.3 and all the available toolbars. So extrude cut and through all. -42. All right, flying back in. 43, new and different. All right, so here we'll go with not really seeing any particular geometry. I guess my first is this front profile. We can start on the right, extrude it out. Well, the 15 minus, or 42 minus 15, what do we have, 27? And then add this block on to that geometry. So new, part metric, right plane sketch, put in the stair step geometry, had a little miss there. Okay, so we get the 3 steps in. So let's go ahead and connect the dots, get those back in. Let's see, lower edge is 50 millimeters, height is 30. Alright, so for the steps, 15. And then we have an 8, a 10, and a 25. Okay, so that gets me fully defined. We'll go back into the extrude. 42 minus 15, and tab, 27. That gives me the depth. Let's just go back in on the top plane. Except now I lost my perspective, so let's get the geometry going. So from the corner, we'll come out 15 and 32 on the length. And then the features extrude through all, well, not that direction, through all to the depth. No up to next, up to vertex we could pick a corner, surface would be the top, offsetting from the surface or up to body, no, midplane, no. So through all looks like a good choice. Alright, we'll go ahead and save that one back to our folder. Okay, we'll start the next video with 44.